Hey everybody, what's up? It's Jeremy Siskin here. I'm the author of Jazz Piano Fundamentals, and I'm the author of Playing Solo Jazz Piano, which you also see over there. Buy these books from me. It helps support the channel, helps support my lavish lifestyle, my playboy lifestyle. But speaking of lavish lifestyles, today I want to talk about thinking in terms of key centers rather than thinking in terms of chord-scale relationships. I know a lot of people who watch this channel are like way smarter than me and have done a lot more research. But it's been only the past few months that I've really solidified my thinking that thinking in terms of key centers is better when determining scales than thinking in terms of chord-scale relationships. And just in case you're not clear of what I mean by chord-scale relationships, in general, in jazz education land, if you've learned any Jamie Aebersold, anything, when you see, let's say, a D7, you're going to use the D Mixolydian mode. And this makes sense to a certain degree, right? The notes from the D Mixolydian mode really match the notes of a D7 scale. Or, another common one would be if you have G minor 7, you're going to use G Dorian. Okay, this, again, makes total sense. If you have a G minor 7, the notes of G Dorian match that beautifully. But I want to show you some places where, at least in my opinion, it's really been quite limiting to think in terms of those chord scales. So, let's go here, I guess. And I don't know what's up with my camera today. It keeps drifting. Okay, so I've been working on this piece called Lulus Back in Town by Fats Waller. One of the catchiest melodies that I know. And there's a few different ways to harmonize it, but I like the one that I've written here, with the first two bars being D, G, C, all dominant, then to F7. A great tune. It's so joyful, it's so bubbly, it's so fun. Now, improvising over this has actually proven kind of challenging because these chords all have very different chord scales and they move really fast. And so even though I love playing this piece and particularly this melody, I haven't had the greatest time improvising. I've come up with improvisations like where I'm essentially arpeggiating the chord. Right? Kind of really having to change course every 2 beats. And that's because I'm thinking of the chord scales and I'm treating each chord really individually. To me, I think I can actually do much better if I think about the key center. And here, the key center of this entire thing, in my humble opinion, is F major. Right? So C is obviously the 5, F is the 1, G I would say is the 5 of 5, and D, and I know this is getting convoluted, is the 5 of 5 of 5, or we could call it the 5 of 2. But since we never go to G minor, I think in this case I might like it better as this 5 of 5 of 5. And so what I'm going to do instead of improvising over each of these chords, I'm going to improvise just using the F major scale, or maybe even the F blues scale, because we can do that when we're in the key of F major. So I feel much more free improvising over this key center. That feels a lot more easy, and I feel like I can be more melodic than if I'm going. There's a place for both. I'm not saying that one is correct and the other is incorrect, but I'm saying I often don't think to just play. play diatonically from the key, and I feel like I can make much better melodies when I do that. Let's look at the second example, which is kind of a common tune for less experienced pianists. It's All of Me, classic Sinatra. Right? And so here we run into some problems immediately. We have an E7 and then an A7. And, you know, if I were to play the Mixolydian scale for the E7, that feels very out of place compared to C major. Now, we have kind of a question here, which is, this is actually functioning as the 5 of 2. Okay, and let me explain that. So D minor is the 2. A is the 5 of 2. And this is leading to the A. It's the 5 of the 5 of 2. So I guess it's a fair question to ask, are we then, what key are we in? Are we in the key of D minor? Maybe. But I actually think in this moment, we don't know that we're going to head to D minor. I think we could actually just be in the 5 of 6. Here we think we're going to A minor, and then we end up not actually going to A minor. Sorry, I just keep adjusting this camera because it keeps drifting, which is weird. So here I would play 2 measures of C, then like an A harmonic minor. And notice that compared to the E Mixolydian, that's going to have an F natural and a C natural. But it sounds so much more appropriate. And, you know, you can also kind of argue that we're still in this world of C major. So having an F natural and a C natural makes a heck of a lot more sense than having an F sharp and a C sharp, right? That's going to be much more distant from that harmonic world of C major. And now we're on this A7, a little bit of a surprise, but now I think we are in D minor. So I would use notes from probably D harmonic minor. So this will be A harmonic minor. And again, these aren't the only options, but I think this is our best starting place. It's a heck of a lot better than thinking that both of these chords are going to be Mixolydian. So listen, here's C. And by the way, you know, this also applies to this D minor chord. Here I would use D melodic minor. Now some people would use D Dorian here, but D Dorian is in the key of C major, right? Here we're, I think, you know, we have a 5 to a 1. We're like solidly in the key of D minor. So we want to use a scale that's actually a D minor scale, not just a kind of an offshoot of the C major scale. Okay. There's other choices that you certainly could make in here, especially with dominant chords. We always have a million choices. But like I said, I think this is helpful to think in key signature. So, and again, and I'll do this in a different color. If I want to think in key signature, this is obviously in the key of C major. Then this is in the key of A minor, even though we never get an A minor chord. Isn't that weird? And then these two are in the key of D minor. Okay, Ain't Misbehavin'. There's also a bunch of different ways you could play this very first progression, but I think the most common is what we sometimes call a diminished walk-up. So it's like a 1 chord, going up a half step to a diminished, to the 2 chord, going up a half step to the diminished, and then sometimes people write this as D minor, but I prefer to write it as B flat over D. You can watch my entire video about the 3 chord to learn more about that. Sorry. Right, so if you are thinking in terms of chord scales, this is going to be a very difficult part of the song, actually, because you're going to play B flat major, and then usually the thing that we do for diminished chords is the whole half octatonic, and then then you're going to play C minor, and then C sharp half whole octatonic. Sorry, C sharp whole half octatonic. I said it wrong, I think. Right. And there's arpeggiating all the. Certainly possible. Sounds good. But I would argue that this entire passage is just in the key of B flat major. Right? And I mean, you could even see we're going from B flat to B flat. Like, we're not going anywhere. We're staying in B flat major. So instead, I'm going to just use the B flat major scale. I notice there's a pretty big conflict in there. Bothers me a little bit. It doesn't bother me that much. For those of you who have been following me a long time, you might have seen a video I did that was an improv game inspired by Keith Jarrett. And I bring it up here because I'll often hear Keith Jarrett play almost diatonically for the entire first chorus of his performance. And then he'll become more and more chromatic as he goes on. I think this is a really good strategy to build a solo with a lot of variety and a lot of color and kind of an increasing of tension. If you start really using notes from the key and then you add in more and more notes from each individual chord, this can create kind of an interesting effect. So watch, I'm going to do this over kind of a shorter sped up time period. So here's Ain't Misbehavin'. I'll start just using the B flat major scale. Hear that color? Now I'm going to introduce some blues. So that first chorus was mostly diatonic until I got to that last A section, and I was adding more and more chromatic notes. And some of you might have that question, where are those chromatic notes coming from? A few places. One is these individual chords. I'm dipping in to the scale for B diminished. I'm dipping into the scale for C sharp diminished seventh. The blues scale, right? The blues scale has chromatic notes. And the blues scale, again, is going to go with your key center. So for these first two bars, as I'm playing B flat major, I can use that blues scale from B flat major, or I can use the B flat blues scale, I should say. Where else are they coming from? They could be just neighbor tones, chromatic neighbor tones. And then some of them can be the alterations that we put on dominant chords, using a flat 9, a sharp 9, a sharp 5, and a flat 5. All right, before I conclude, let's plug these books one more time. Playing Solo Jazz Piano. Jazz Piano Fundamentals. They'll change your life. That's a Siskin guarantee. I don't know. And then just to summarize here, I would encourage you not so much to think about the scales of individual chords, but to start by thinking about the key center that you're in, big picture, and then dipping in to just the scale of the overall key center, especially when harmonic motion is moving quickly. Thanks so much, everybody. I'll see you soon.